Good night. It's just the early morning of the 27th of March 2025, and I'm just in from the workshop after doing a lot of work on a little metalworking project I'm doing. And it's nice and quiet this time of night, no phone calls, so you can get stuff done. But I'm done now, I'm going to bed. So, I made an earlier video about wind energy, and it did very well. There's about 500 views there. But the thing about it is that what I have been saying on this subject is groundbreaking or outrageous if you take it like that. And it has comparisons in a way to the Ukraine war, would you believe? And it is this that I have claimed for years and years, 15 to 16 years, that wind energy only saves about 4% of its own rated capacity in fossil fuel over a year. And then as time progressed and as I kept watching it, I claimed further that they're just appliances, that over a year, wind energy actually uses more fossil fuel to run them than they produce. And that doesn't include the emissions and fossil fuel it takes to make the turbines, the concrete, the steel, and all the other equipment, and the fossil fuel needed to run the vehicles to maintain them. And that's just on the site. When you move to the whole system, the whole grid system in Ireland or any other country, the thing gets even worse, in that they're burning more fuel at the power stations and in make-up power stations and in fabricated power stations and in closed turf burning power stations and in data centres to run the grid. So not only are the windmills net consumers of electricity when measured over a year, but they result in an increase in fossil fuel use, which I have discovered through a lot of painful investigation and a lot of good luck, means that there's diesel being burnt to the tune of 56 big articulated lorry loads every day to make up for the original traditional type fossil fuel generators that have been taken out of service, so-called to save the environment. Some subscriber there asked the question about if there was green diesel, if it was rebated agricultural diesel or road diesel, and that I cannot answer you, because I didn't do too bad to discover the first part of it. But going to find out whether it's tractor diesel or not is just something I didn't get to do. So I don't have that piece of information as to the colour of the diesel. Maybe I'd find out about that in due course. But I do have the fact that they're burning that diesel and that is suppressed information and it is hidden from public view. Now, if you look at the share price of Green Coat Renewable Power today, you'll see it's 72 cents. These cost €1, 100 cents, and you can buy them now for 72 cents. And the difference in Green Coat Renewables and the ESB, SSE, National Toll Roads and other utilities that run wind farms as well as their ordinary fossil fuel plant is that Green Coat has no generation of its own. Green Coat does not generate conventional electricity with open cycle turbines, combined cycle turbines, or indeed coal-fired condensing steam turbines. It has no ordinary generating capacity. Therefore, its entire operation is based on wind energy. Whereas the ESB, SSE, and these other people, Energia and all of these, they sell electricity as well. So they can pile the price onto the bill, whereas Green Coat cannot. They can simply pass it on to the consumer. So they were paying way more, well over twice the price for electricity we would pay if we had no wind energy at all. And if you just think of it logically, Greencoat Renewables have something like 39 wind farms. That's what it says on the internet. Well, it says 35. They have a lot of wind energy, mostly onshore, and most of it in Ireland. But they don't have fossil fuel plants or power stations, as we would call them, fuel power stations. So they cannot levy the expense on their consumers. They have no consumer base for ordinary fossil fuel electricity. Whereas the other companies like DSB and SSE and Energy and these can. And so the ESB can hold on to its profits because it can charge for the ordinary electricity, whereas Greencoat has none of that, and therefore its share price is going down the Swanee. If it were making a profit, the share price would be going up. But 72 cents on the euro on the 100 is a colossal failure on behalf of Greencoat, and the institutional shareholders are now forcing them to sell wind farms. Why would they be selling them if they're making a profit? But why would anybody pump money into building more onshore wind farms and more offshore wind farms when you can buy an existing wind farm company with 35 to 39 wind farms for 72% of the cost price, of the share price? Wouldn't that be ridiculous? Ridiculous. Why would you buy a new car in one garage at a certain price, we say 100,000, when you can get the very same car in another place for 72? Somebody also posted there about our interconnectors. I know the interconnectors. I could sing them backways. The mile is one comes in, and the east-west interconnector is another one. I don't know about this other one. That's the new one on me now. There's about 15 engineers work with me on this subject. But the thing about the little bit of electricity that's brought into this country, it's counted as carbon-free. There's no carbon tax on it, and there's they can charge carbon credits on it, even those produced by coal in Britain, and oil and gas. I mean, if it's produced in Britain from coal, surely it should have a carbon cost the same as if it's produced in Ireland. So that's a cheat. That's disinformation and cheating. Now, what about the Ukraine war? Well, the Ukraine war, the Ukrainians gave the impression that they could beat Russia. And many wise people, including maybe myself, if I could call myself wise, said they can't beat Russia. Not without the input of the United States or NATO. And the United States would not get involved under Joe Biden, and is certainly trying to wriggle out of it now with Donald Trump. So why was there so much media about beating Russia when there was never a hope of beating Russia? Well, the answer is it was all for the media. It was all a media show. And it was designed to extract billions and billions of euros and dollars out of the European Union and the Americans. Maybe a little out of Canada. I don't think the Australians paid anything. I don't think the Japanese paid anything. Don't see any Caribbean island paying anything to the Ukraine war. Certainly the Irish did. But by painting this picture that they could beat the Russians, that it wasn't a dead loss throwing money in, they managed to pull out a lot of money, about half of which is gone, unaccounted for in the pockets of bank accounts of a few people while people die. So this is the hype. They could never beat Russia, and everyone knew that. And the wind farms and the Economic and Social Research Institute continually talk about what we can do. Wind energy will do this. And no one ever sees that that's only an empty promise. They never issued a report to say it has done anything. What might happen is if there's a very windy week, usually in April you often get east winds, they'll say wind energy generated 60% of our electricity needs in a particular week. But when they don't produce anything, there's no report at all. So this is an organised media Ponzi scheme, a way of extracting money. And the reason it's done with wind energy is because people need electricity. They can levy it on the electricity bill. The utility companies that produce the ordinary fossil fuel electricity have to, by a process known as priority dispatch, they have to take the wind energy as offered. If they can't take it, they have to pay compensation, called constraint payments. But if it's offered, they have to pay it. And the price they have to pay is the price of the most expensive fossil fuel in the mix at any one time. They have to pay the market price. So if coal was dirt cheap and gas was dirt cheap, and there was a little diesel being used which was very expensive, it's the diesel fuel that the wind energy companies receive. So diesel is quite an expensive way of generating electricity. And according to the rules, therefore, because the Irish government is burning 56 full lorry loads of diesel fuel per day, the wind energy companies, if they're following that particular rule, will have to get the price of the diesel, when in fact the diesel is being burnt because the power stations they tried or did shut down, like Moneypoint partly shut down, have been shut down as a brag or as a media exercise to show that they're actually reducing the amount of fossil fuel burnt, when in fact they were replacing it with diesel. And if the fossil fuel was kept, it would be cheaper, and therefore the wind energy companies would get less than the replacement emergency fuel diesel oil. They have to get the cost of that. So you can see it's round and round and round a pyramid selling scheme. If you Google on the papers there, I did videos before, Eamon Ryan, the previous minister who's now gone out of politics, has paid 10 or 11 million, I think it's 11 million euros for big man diesel generators, diesel engines, and they were landed on the South Quays in Dublin, and they cannot get them away from where they are because no bridge can carry them, including the Westlink Bridge. They cannot go over it. They're about 2.5 times the permitted weight of the Westlink Bridge. If they bring them across the Westlink Bridge, they'll collapse the Westlink Bridge. But a lot of smaller diesel engines are in, and anyone that's involved in data centres will tell you they are full loaded of yellow Caterpillar diesel generators. That, to my notion, folks, proves I was right all along. I assessed this 15 years ago. It's a scam in every way. In every way. And I've given you the mechanism by which they survive. They survive by loading the losses onto other utility companies, such as National Toll Roads, ESB, SSE Electricity. But Greencoat Renewables has nowhere to fall back to. And they have huge investors with pension funds and everything in there, thinking that the people who pay in, who are working people who pay in to buy this junk, are going to get something back. And how can they get something back when the share they put in costs 100 cents and the money they get today is 72 cents? And why would anyone invest money like 100 cents a share in a new wind farm when you can get an existing wind farm, maybe one only 3 or 4 year old, for 72 cents on the dollar or on the euro? Does that not prove that's a Ponzi scheme? If I were using that logic as a shareholder investor and able to pick particular shares as investors do, like Warren Buffett and them, that would be a green light straight away. You'd be getting out of them immediately. But for some reason, probably due to ignorance, they are still plugging this with the media, with the government, and everything. And the people don't mind paying the extra electricity. But as an extension to the Ukraine war, which can't be won, you see now what they're doing. They were panicking about climate change. There was a rush into all this wind energy. When the Russians pulled the plug on the cheap gas and the fuel, the economy of Germany almost collapsed. It's partially collapsed. The entire manufacturing of the UK, of Starmer's net zero, is almost gone. They closed up the steelworks. And here they're talking about going to war now over Ukraine, after closing the very facilities to manufacture the weapons, the guns, the cannon guns, the artillery, the vehicles and all needed for war. It just shows you they don't have a clue what they're doing. They're just stupid. And it goes back to my point. You get what you vote for. And the voters swallow this stuff, hook, line and sinker. If what I'm saying is true, voters should kick out the parties that do it. But in Ireland, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin and all the left-wing parties, such as the Labour Party, all still believe that this is the way to go. And not only that, they want to add a big lump of offshore wind off the northwest coast. More of it, when it is clear that the only way it can be paid for is by the electricity bill of the consumer. And not only that, there are still apparently some investors, mainly in Norway, because Norway is an extremely rich country from exporting oil and fuel, who will still put money in to extending these things. But they don't have to run them. It's the bill payer, it's the Irish payer of his electricity bill that has to bear the whole cost of all the existing coal, oil and gas and diesel generation and all the existing wind farms that are on the grid, and now all this new tranche of this offshore wind farms, which could equal at least 3/4 of the onshore wind. So you have the main generation, the conventional generation, you have the existing wind, which nearly equals the conventional generation, and you have the offshore wind coming, which is about a good deal of the equality of any of the other two. So you're going to have three generators to be paid for, when only one of them, that's the conventional generators, are actually doing anything or producing any electricity or making any profit or able to pay back their capital cost. So that means that the conventional generators using coal, oil and gas have to not only fuel the economy, the houses, the domestic industry and everything in Ireland, they have to fuel the onshore and offshore wind farms. And they have to collect the money off the bill by producing ordinary electricity to keep the other ones going. If that is not the essence of a clever Ponzi scheme, it's not that clever, it doesn't fool me, but if that's not a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid selling scheme, what is? The business model for all wind farms is build them and sell them as quick as possible. And as well as that, it's very hard to get a home for money. The money that's been generated in the economies is paid into pension funds and all of this, and health funds and everything, and they need a place to put it. And they're not smart enough to know that this won't work. They've already bought a big tranche, billions of. I think Greencoat has a capitalization of 1.1 billion. And of that, only 72% can be recovered at this particular time. Do you get me point? It's all one massive media exercise. And the ESRI issued a recent statement telling us what they expect to happen in the next few years if we build more wind farms, but they never can tell us what happened in the last few years with all the wind farms they built. We already have achieved nearly all our targets, or way over the targets we built. But in addition to this, they lie with impunity. They tell the hairiest lies, and they get away with it because they have the media on their side. And it was the same with the general politics, with the whole woke stuff. They had the media totally on their side. And they get away with it all over Europe. They get away with it in Canada up to now. But the Americans, who are astute and are big into investment, every one of them has stocks and shares, nearly all, they saw through it and they voted against it. And Trump happened to be the man sitting there to collect that vote. He immediately cancelled all state lands for wind energy. Because it's the road to nowhere, it's the road to de-industrialization. And the funny thing is that Europe is now talking about going back to war and getting on a war footing after them destroying their own generating capacity. And Germany closed down 3 of its big nuclear power stations and is still doing it. And then they're looking for where are they going to get the electricity? Where are they going to get the fuel? They're paying 4 times the price they were getting it of Russia. That's enough said. I'll not labour on it anymore because it might damage my channel by dwelling on it too much. But that is a huge exposition. That is a huge thing for a farmer with cows to say. The wind energy is nothing more than the Ponzi scheme that Bernard Madoff ran and that several other people have ran. But because it's intertwined with the generating of electricity, they get away with it. You can say you're saving the planet when in fact you're cheating big time. You're cheating the entire country, its government and its electricity system by telling the lie that it can save fossil fuel, when in fact it saves nothing and uses more than if it wasn't there at all. The emperor has no clothes. Comment underneath. Goodbye. Thank you.